Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, your co-host, Shaq. We're going to be talking UFC Norfolk, Joseph Benavidez versus Deiveson Figueiredo. And Shaq, it's going down this Saturday in Norfolk, Virginia. The vacant flyweight title is on the line.
Yeah, 100%. Joseph Benavidez, one of the best fighters to ever compete in the sport that has never won a title. I mean, he's pretty much won every fight besides the Cruz, the DJ ones, and the Serghei one, of course. But, I mean, he's had a great career. I'm glad to see him get another title shot. And Figueiredo, since he came into the UFC, I mean, this guy has been a guy that I think we said from the early going could fight for a title one day, and now here he is.
Absolutely, man. Obviously, with Joseph Benavidez, this could be his final opportunity at a UFC title shot, and this is a guy that's definitely earned his ways. He's been top 3 at bantamweight and flyweight for over a decade, and now he finally has this chance to go out there, get that UFC belt before he finally calls it a career. And for Deiveson Figueiredo to be 17-1 in his first title shot, this kid's gone out there, beat the top competition, and now he's in the position he's in for a reason, Shaq.
Yeah, Deiveson, he puts on exciting fights. The God of War, he's got the cool haircut, and this guy is just intense. And since he came into the UFC, I mean, he showed right away that he's got vicious KO power. He's got, good jiu-jitsu. So Deiveson and Benavidez, the flyweights, they always bring it. They're, in my opinion, top 2 or 3 most exciting weight classes in the UFC. So anytime the flyweights fight, you got to watch.
100%. Well, before we break this fight down, or before we break down this card start to finish, Shaq, just got to let them know that MaxBet season is back. Shaq's coming off a MaxBet win over Yan Zona, and I had a big bet on her too. And not only do we bet on Yan Zona in every single fight, Shaq, but this is your second MaxBet cash in a row for 2020.
And did what she was expected to do, so.
Yeah, it was an amazing thing to see. So go to bestfightpicks.com, use that promo code 2020, and check. Let's break down this whole card start to finish. Now, first up in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between Ismail, the Austrian wonderboy Naurdiev, he's 19-3, and Sean Brady, he's 11-0. Currently, they got Ismail Naurdiev -125. The comeback on Sean Brady is +105. Well, Shaq, you got a serious welterweight showdown here between two prospects to kick off the card. Ismail Naurdiev, he's been up and down in the UFC, but only 2-1 at this point. This is his 4th appearance. And Sean Brady has been undefeated his entire career. He's taken the right fights. But this is the youngest fighter he's competed against in a very long time. You think Sean Brady's going to continue the undefeated streak, or is it time for the Austrian wonder boy to rise?
Yeah, Sean Brady, he had a good showing in his debut against Court McGee. Court McGee's been around for a long time, but Court McGee, is also on his way out, and he did his thing. He dropped him hard in the first round, and kind of similar with Naurdiev, he got to work on some things against an aging vet in Bahadurzada, his last fight. Both these guys are very young. Naurdiev probably's got the better kicks, and Brady's probably got the better hands. And one thing you can't forget about Brady is, man, this guy's weighing in at like 167, 168. I mean, he's just, but I kind of don't want to say not put too much stock into it, but the guy is cocked, man. He's strong. I mean, the dude can hit, so he kind of reminds me of a little Matt Serra, man. He's short for a welterweight, but he definitely packs a punch, and he just seems like a very solid professional. Naurdiev, I feel like longer term is going to, project out to be better. But Naurdiev, the grappling is still a bit of a concern of mine. I know Rencounter's a good wrestler, but the fact that there were spurts where he couldn't get up at all, and I think he just kind of mismanaged his energy. But I think that if he manages his energy, if he, fights to the best of his ability, I think that the kicks can really get to Brady at distance. Brady is short, and if Brady starts moving back like he tends to do, like he did in that Court McGee fight with his back on the fence, I think Naurdiev can pick him off at range, and it's just a matter of Naurdiev can stay off the mat, because Rencounter, I forget what the line was in that fight. I think it was Naurdiev like -800 or something like that. He was coming off that win over Tractor Prezeres, but I think that we kind of gave him a little bit too much praise for that win over Prezeres. Prezeres is a 5'6" welterweight, but hey, so is Brady. But Tractor Prezeres, I don't know if you know, he got suspended for 2 years. They finally caught the weasel. But but I think Naurdiev's the better fighter. as of right now, currently slightly more experience, longer, a lot better kicks, and I think that if he keeps his distance, he can win a decision here against Sean Brady. But I got a lot of respect for Sean Brady. He's a tough kid.
This should be a hell of a matchup. Two very serious prospects here with Ismail Naurdiev. Look, if that Chancellor encounter fight never happened, this guy's going to be a big favorite in this spot here against Sean Brady. And I respect Sean Brady, too. He's short, he's stocky, he swings big bombs, he can mix in takedowns. He also turned down 2 fights with our guy Jared Nitrain Gooden. But I respect him for that because he took the right fights to get into the UFC, had that padded undefeated record, and now it's time to finally face another fellow young fighter. And I think that it is first L time for Sean Brady this Saturday night in Norfolk, Virginia. Look, Ismail Naurdiev, he's very talented. He's had his ups, his downs, but he's been able to rebuild. He's only 23 years old. He's just a kid. And I think every single time we see him, we're going to be seeing a better version of him. I think he probably thought with Chancellor encounter, like, dude, I'm coming off this massive win over Prezerish. I can do anything. I don't even have to train that hard. I can go out there and beat these guys. I was on the mat sweeping Prezerish, and I think he thought he was just going to go in there, first head kick, the fight was going to be over shortly after. And when that didn't happen, he might have broke a little bit. Now I think he knows that, hey, we got to go all 15 minutes hard if we want to be inside the UFC's octagon. This ain't those guys on the regional scene that he was just going out there kicking one time, and they would go down. So I think Ismail Naurdiev is going to make the proper adjustments. I think he's going to come out here and beat Sean Brady. Now, next up in the 145-pound division, we got Aalon Cruz. He's 8-2, and Spike Carlyle is 8-1. Currently, they got Aalon Cruz -175, and Spike, the Alpha Ginger Carlyle, is +155. Shaq, it's an interesting fight, man, because I've seen Aalon Cruz on the regional scene, and I knew this guy was going to make it to the UFC. When I saw him fight in the NFC, and I sat front row for that fight, I immediately noticed, hey, this is a 6'1" featherweight going out here, and I know they officially got him listed at 6 feet, but between you and me, Shaq, he's 6'1", and he's got the long man game down. This guy's going out there throwing flying knees, front kicks, jabs. You shoot on him, that long-ass guillotine is there waiting for you, and he's a very cerebral guy. You know, if you look at his 2 losses, he lost both of them via rear naked choke, including to Cameron Neville, who, shout out to Best Fight Pick sponsored athlete Robert King Hale, coming off a win over Cameron Neville. But since that point, you thought, well, if this guy hits the mat, that's where he has a sure weakness. But then he went on and he fought a first-degree black belt. He got taken down right away, and he was able to get back up and even land whizzer kicks, kind of like judo throws of his own on that first-degree black belt. So that, to me, is a big improvement from his losses. And I feel like the version of Aalon Cruz that we're seeing nowadays, you saw the first-round rear naked choke over Steve Garcia. You saw the flying knee knockout over Steve Wynn on Contender Series. And I feel like now he's primed to go out there, get that first UFC win, and he's going to have a very tough opponent here in Spike Carlyle. Look, they don't call him the Alpha Ginger for no reason. This guy definitely has a presence about him. He's very relentless with the shot, and his last 2 fights, Shaq, he went out there and knocked these guys out of nowhere, so you got to respect his power too, but I think his main attack is the wrestling. And I heard he's a black belt in judo. I heard he's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. So Spike Carlyle is no joke at all, but I think the long limbs of Aalon Cruz is going to be a big weapon here. I think a front kick's going to be open up the middle, the flying knee. When Spike starts to slow down a little bit, I think that's when Aalon Cruz can make him pay. And somewhere along the way, whether it's a finish or the points adding up, I see Aalon Cruz winning in his UFC debut.
Yeah, it's a good matchup. You know, Spike Carlyle, he's got a nice little gimmick, the Alpha Ginger. I'll tell you what, man, the kid's super aggressive. Like you said, he likes to press with the takedowns. Seems like he's been his boxing's been getting better his last couple fights, and he's been knocking guys out unconscious with some pretty interesting things in his ground game. Man, kid's relentless. He's definitely got the cardio. I see him winning some fights in the UFC for sure. He's coming in on short notice against Cruz. Cruz, I feel like, is one of these, I don't want to say typical tall guys, but he's very good. If you give him space, he can be very, very dangerous with the front kicks, the knees, like we saw in that fight against Stephen Wynn and all his other fights. And it just seems like lately, maybe versus early in his career that he's just fighting a lot more professionally. He's making a lot better choices in the octagon. He did have those 2 hiccups, one to Cameron Neville, but Spike Carlyle's got a hiccup on his record too. So I don't
to
really,
an 8-11 guy.
So I don't really put too much stock into both their losses. Everyone, some of these guys Darren Elkins lost to Ted Worthington.
GSP lost to Matt Serra.
Yeah, it happens. But I think that if what I'm really interested in is the type of start that Spike gets off to, because it just seems like he's coming to push the action right away. Now that can be dangerous because you got Cruz throwing those attacks up the middle and Spike's a lot shorter. The thing is, if those attacks don't affect Spike, is Spike going to be the aggressor and actually get the takedowns and move forward? Cruz is going to have to fend off those takedowns. I think he can, but I do think Spike is a lot tougher than those regional opponents that he was fighting. But I think Cruz is the better fighter. I think that what I'm really interested to see is can Spike Carlyle strike with Aalon Cruz in that second and third round out in space when he's a little fatigued after they've grappled a little bit, and can he maintain his composure? The kid seems like a smart kid. He talks very well, but I got to go with Aalon Cruz. I think he's the better fighter. As far as a betting perspective, it's kind of interesting. It opened to pick him. Now Cruz is minus 175. The pick him, I would have opened Cruz up a slight favorite, maybe kind of where he is right now, as the opening line. So I don't know if you have value on the current line of what it is right now, but I do think he gets the win. I think he's the longer striker, the more intelligent guy, but I respect Spike Carlyle.
Now, next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Jordan, the native psycho Griffin, he's 17-7, and TJ Brown is 14-6. Currently, they got Jordan Griffin minus 130. The comeback on TJ Brown is plus 110. Well, Shaq, this is TJ Brown's UFC debut. He's already had 20 professional fights before making that octagon debut, so seasoning's not going to be an issue here. You think this kid gets it done in his UFC debut?
TJ Brown, he had an interesting fight on Contender Series. He got dropped right away, and then he was able to just keep getting takedowns. He's a very good grappler. I'd consider him a submission specialist. He's got 6 arm triangles, some other submissions. Kid's definitely had a long road to get here, had 6 losses. He had a somewhat of an inconsistent patch in his career, and it seems like lately he's one of these guys that's been figuring it out. So then you got Jordan Griffin, who I think super exciting. His fights with Ige in his debut, that's a top, or at least like right outside the top 15 type of guy. Then he fought Chaz Skelly, who's a 18-4, if I'm not mistaken. So, I feel like he's had 2 tough opponents to come out the gates with when he was probably more of an entry-level guy. So this is probably going to be a step down for Jordan. Jordan, I feel like, is super scrappy. I mean, the issue with Jordan is, even if you watch his LFA fights and his local scene fights, man, this kid is always reckless and putting himself in bad positions. He gets his back taken every single fight. He gets taken down every single fight. And sometimes, you want Jordan to strike, but then Jordan will end up shooting for the takedowns himself and then start the whole, never-ending cycle of him making stupid mistakes on the mat. So I feel like lower-level guys, he can sometimes, he caught them with some submissions like he did on Contender Series. But in the UFC, man, I feel like his style is very... What I basically mean is, it's kind of hard for me to see him winning decisions. Like, I kind of see him as a guy like he might have to get a finish to win, because this guy don't care about no type of top control positioning. Like, for points, I just don't think he's a very good fighter. Now, TJ Brown, I will say, is a liability on the feet, but he 100% has the grappling control and the grappling skill to out-grapple Jordan Griffin, in my opinion. So I'm actually going to take him here for the win. Now, I do think Griffin's better on the feet, and TJ Brown almost floored his last fight 100%. But Jordan Griffin, I don't see him as the power striker type, the type of guy that can necessarily put TJ Brown out with one shot. Maybe I'm wrong. So I'm gonna take TJ Brown. I just think he's gonna capitalize on the grappling situations. And Griffin's just never proven to me that he can, Ige fight. I know it's Dan Ige though. But he had him smashed round 2, and then he made another bad decision. Chaz Skelly had him fully mounted, smashing him, and then he pulled another bad decision. So we'll see what happens here. But I'll take TJ Brown for the upset.
This is an interesting matchup, and I think it's lined appropriately. You know, a pick 'em with a slight lean on Jordan Griffin just because of the UFC experience. But again, this kid, TJ Brown's very seasoned coming into the octagon, and his grappling's on point. He can definitely scramble with some decent guys. Now, the biggest question and concern is his chin, because not only did he get dropped on Contender Series, Shaq, but the guy's been knocked out on multiple occasions, and it's usually by fighters with losing records too, as recently as 2018. So there's that way of looking at it, and then there's the other that this kid actually went out there. Not only is he winning these fights via arm triangle, but he also has a couple head kick KOs on his record too. So he can mix it up as well. But man, he's such a liability standing on the feet. And if Jordan Griffin comes in here with any kind of smarts, because I know that's been the biggest issue for Jordan Griffin, is his fight IQ ain't the best at all, Shaq. But if he comes in here, you know, I know his back is up against the wall. Touch this guy on the chin, he will go down. So I'm going to go with Jordan Griffin here slightly. It might be a dog or pass situation, but I'm going to go with the favorite, Jordan Griffin. I think he touches TJ Brown on the chin, puts him down. I think TJ Brown will be back. Now, next up in the heavyweight division, we got a matchup between Marcin Tybura, he's 17-6, and Serghei Spivac is 10-1. Currently, they got Serghei Spivac -120 and Marcin Tybura is +100. Well, Shaq, I know they remember we successfully cashed that Augusto Sakai dog money against Marcin Tybura. Went out there, floored him in the first minute. But this is a different matchup here with Serghei Spivac. Serghei is kind of like a young Alexi, likes to go out there with those schoolyard headlocks. You think he's gonna welcome Marcin Tybura to the playground this weekend?
Yeah, you know, Tybura, I mean, it hasn't been looking good lately, man. I think it's safe to say he's on his way out. I mean, that's facts. I thought after the Verdum fight, everyone thought his career was going to go upwards, but, you know, it's gone nothing but downwards. The Lewis fight, the Struve fight really wasn't all that impressive. Who else did he fight? Sakai, and there's one more.
Shamil.
And Shamil, yeah. I mean, all those dudes, you know, handled him fairly easily, man. And Tybura's weight's been gaining each fight. I mean, the kid's down on himself right now, man. And then you got Spivac, who pulled off that big upset against Bam Bam Tuivasa. Spivac, man, I'm a little skeptical of his stand-up 100%, but Tybura is like one of these heavyweights that I'm not gonna kind of like what I say about Eric Anders. It's like he's a big guy trying to fight like a little guy. You know, he's got the movement with the teeps but like where's the. You got, I mean, a heavyweight, bro, at some point you're going to have to step in there and get in there and throw with some of these guys if you want to succeed, like how you saw Sakai get in there with them and Shamil and all these guys. And I just don't see Tybura doing that. It just seems like he wants to play this pitter-patter game with the teeps on the outside. And, you know, unless he's fighting, you know, a old, you know, stationary Brazilian like Luis Enrique or Andre, the ghost of Andre Arlovski, then, you know, he kind of struggles, man. So
yeah, he struggled agast the ghost of Andre Arlovski too, by the way.
Exactly. So, man, I think there's a very good chance that Tybura is done. Obviously, you have to play that slight chalk line to find out on Serghei Spivac. And Spivac, we know there's still a little skepticism on his game. But I feel like Spivac, it might not necessarily be the striking. I feel like he could probably come out here and just shoot on Tybura, tie him up. And I'm not, you know, this fight could go to decision. It could be one of those, you know, sloppy, slow heavyweight fights because Spivac is no Sakai and I view those guys better than Spivac still. But I'm going to go with Spivac, man. He's younger, hungrier, should be getting better. He's young. I mean, I think he's less than 25 if I'm not mistaken. So I think that Spivac is going to look better here. And although I haven't seen much of his stand-up and he, you know, prior to the UFC, he kind of really didn't fight anybody. I think that mentally he's in a lot better place. And I think that it's really not that hard to get Tybura deterred at this point in his career. So I'll go with Spivac.
Look, just to put it lightly, Tybura is one of the biggest frauds I've ever seen in the heavyweight division. When he came into the UFC with so much hype,
I lost to Tim Johnson.
I went out there and cashed a plus money bet on Tim Johnson, actually. And I actually max bet Tybura
How
one
about
time.
Big Dick Timmy the other day knocking out Tyrell, man?
Man, I know Tyrell didn't see that coming. I didn't see it coming either. But I max bet Marcin Tybura to go out there and beat Andrei Arlovsky, who was at like 4 a.m. in Singapore. You know, John Tuck had just beat Gomi in under a minute. So now we're thinking, Marcin, just come out here, front kick Arlovsky to the face, and let's cash these tickets. And second round, the guy's huffing and puffing. He's getting full mounted. He's doing the whole bit. And look, then he got his big fight with Werdum. And like Shaq said, after that fight, you'd think, hey, he just went the 5-round distance with a former champion. Let's see how this kid's career blossoms afterwards. And it did quite the opposite, because he's been knocked out in 3 of his last 4 fights in vicious fashion, Shaq. So I don't know where the guy's head's at. And like you mentioned, he's been gaining weight every single fight. Back in the days when he was winning fights, he was like 246. Well, his last fight against Serghei, he was 257. So I wonder what we're going to see later on today on the scales here against Serghei Spivac. Now, one thing I will say about Tybura, if this was the Tybura before the Werdum fight, I'd slightly favor him here. And I think that his takedown defense is pretty decent. But at the same time, as these guys decline, certain parts of their game also tend to go down, parts that they were good at, such as the takedown defense. And I think that if Serghei Spivac puts that constant pressure on him, he can eventually force the takedown, maybe even catch a kick and put him down. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But at the end of the day, man, I got the younger, hungrier guy as well. I think Serghei Spivac's going to come out here and schoolyard headlock Marcin Tybura. So I got Serghei Spivac for the win. Now, next up in the middleweight division, we got a matchup between Tom Breese, he's 11-1, and Brendan Aalon is 13-3. Currently, they got Tom Breese minus 135, and the comeback on Brendan Aalon is plus 115. Well, Shaq, this is a very interesting matchup. I know they remember that we went out there and tried to bet on Ian Heinisch against this guy, Tom Breese, but unfortunately, Tom Breese pulled out the fight. But now he's back. Apparently he's got certain things in his life in order. And look, this should be a fun middleweight matchup between 2 Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts. And I believe that Brendan Aalon is the stronger man here, Shaq. Because, Breese, he's a very big guy. He's 6'3". He's ripped. And at welterweight, he seemed like way bigger than a lot of these guys. But in this specific spot, Aalon can also match the height. And when Aalon gets that body lock on these guys, they tend to get taken down. And on the mat, as long as Aalon is aware of Breeze's leg lock attacks, because, Breeze has some sneaky leg locks, Aalon should be able to maintain that top position and land damage of his own and potentially finish the fight with ground and pound or a submission. Not only has Tom Breese only fought once since 2016, and it was a less than 1 round fight versus the now retired Dan Kelly, but also Breeze has pulled out of multiple fights on fight day, Shaq, versus Heinisch, like we mentioned. Not only that, he pulled out of a fight versus Oluwale Bangbose on fight day. So I question if he still has the hunger and the mindset to compete at this level in 2020. Another thing I want to mention is that Keitaro Nakamura was way smaller than Tom Breese, and he went out there and successfully took him down 3 times, Shaq. Now, there were some scrambles there that I think a black belt would be able to capitalize on, which I'm not sure that Nakamura is. He might be, but not. I think that over here in America, no disrespect, it's a higher level of grappling over here in the United States. No disrespect at all. But basically, what I want to say is that Brendan Aalon's had the same style throughout his entire career, but when you're a purple belt and a blue belt, that style isn't going to be as effective as when you're a black belt. Now that he is a black belt and he's finally leveled up, he's able to go out there and implement that grappling heavy attack that he's always wanted to use throughout his entire career. I feel like he doesn't give up position as much as he used to, and when he does, he's able to scramble out and get dominant positions of his own. And when this guy gets on top of you and he starts getting off on his elbows and he starts taking your back, chances are that the fight might be over shortly after. And I think if he puts Tom Breese in some compromising spots, that the fight will be over shortly after. Now, on the feet, everyone mentions Tom Breese's boxing, and from a technical standpoint, it is maybe cleaner and crisper than Aalon's, but I think Aalon going forward the whole time is going to shut a little bit of that down. I think he's going to get off on some offense of his own and eventually take a Breeze down and finish him. So I'm going to go with Brendan Aalon for the upset here, Shaq.
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup. You know, Brennan had that nice upset over Aalon his last fight. I wasn't expecting that. You know, in the past with Brennan, I haven't really been a big fan of his style. I feel like it kind of has a time limit on it. You know, I feel like, yeah, he's getting better. He's young, 23, very experienced. Already been in there with the likes of a lot of UFC veterans. But, you know, I had some concerns like him moving forward that recklessly and forcing those grappling exchanges. What happens? I mean, I've seen him in the past, you know, especially the Fluffy Hernandez fight where, you know, he's rushing these takedowns, he's rushing these back takes. And I think he was a brown belt back then, but then he'd lose position. And then, I mean, the fight and then he got laid on the rest of the time. And his fight with Holland, it was a very emotionally charged fight. You know, Holland has a lot of beef with Rufus Sport, and it was good to see Brendan go in there and get the revenge for his big bro. Mershardin, in hindsight, that matchup, I mean, you know, Holland consistently puts himself in bad spots. I mean, his fights, you know, with Chirico weren't that impressive. He almost got choked out against Mershard as well. So I think Breese, a lot of it with Breeze is more so not even related to fighting. It's more, you know, more so related to whatever the kid's got going on outside of it. I don't want to put too much details in it. I do think he's the better striker. I do think that he has a little bit more IQ, but Brennan likes to move forward. Brennan likes to put the pressure on these guys, and he's big, man. He definitely is gaining size. I feel like it's almost a 50-50 fight, so from a betting perspective, I do think it's a dog or pass situation. But I also think there's a chance that Breeze comes in here, and I feel like Breeze might be the better fighter, man. I'm not gonna pick him for the win here, just because there's so many questions on site, and I feel like you made some good points about where this kid's head is at. But man, I do see in spurts, man, the kid has some flashes where he looks really good. His boxing, I do feel like he's a little bit better overall. But Brennan's got a lot of momentum on his side. I'll take Brennan just slightly. Maybe I think he might want it a little bit more if this fight becomes bloody and, you know, a dog fight. But man, at times I've also seen Brennan flop to his back and just lay there. But, you know, he was a kid at the time, so maybe I shouldn't put too much on him for that. But I'll take Brennan. I think he's been more active, so, you know, I'll take him.
Now, next up in the bantamweight division, we got a matchup between Gabriel Silva, he's 8-1, and Kyler Phillips is 6-1. Currently, they got Gabriel Silva -120 and Kyler Phillips is +100. Well, Shaq, on paper, it's two prospects. It's striker versus grappler. Kyler Phillips, you know, he's got that karate background. He's got the flashy kicks. Gabriel Silva, the younger brother of former UFC fighter Eric Silva, also a jiu-jitsu black belt, won the first 8 minutes of the fight against Ray Borg. You think he gets back on track here and gets his first UFC win against Kyler Phillips?
Yeah, man, I actually do. I know Phillips opened up the favorite, actually, and he's definitely got some good kicks, a jiu-jitsu background of his own, you know, with the Gracies, if I'm not mistaken, trains at the lab. Man, this kid has been looking like Jesus lately, man, from, I was like, is that Jesus? But, you know, I think Kyler Phillips is a good kickboxer, but, man, I do feel like he's more of a first-round type of guy. If I'm not mistaken, a lot of his wins are in the first round. And when we saw him get extended on Tough against Katona, I mean, he completely gassed out and got outclassed, I mean, badly. So I know he went back to the local scene, been doing his thing. But Gabriel Silva, man, I'm really high on this kid. I know he lost to Borg in his debut. We bet on him. He was +2 something. So, I mean, but, man, he was taking it to Borg in the grappling for a good 7 minutes. It's just he kept making some rookie mistakes that I feel like if he goes back to the gym and works on those, and then that's what Borg, I mean, we just saw what Borg did to Bontarine. Borg can fucking scramble, man. And I think that Kyler Phillips can scramble, but only for, you know, a good 5 minutes. You know, I think that, and Gabriel definitely gassed out in his last fight too, man, but I feel like there's a chance that he comes out here and actually runs through Kyler Phillips, man. I think there's a chance he comes out here and puts on a jiu-jitsu clinic for the fans of Norfolk, Virginia. And one thing about those Silva bros, man, they're also known for their first rounds, you know, and they're also known for giving up at the end. But I think that Borg was a little bit too much of a debut for him. Like when Borg is fucking like focused and actually, training. Like, Borg's really fucking good, man. So I got to go with Gabriel Silva here. I haven't seen Phillips on the mat with someone on this level since the Katona fight, and we saw how that went. So I'm going to go with Gabriel Silva here for a submission victory.
Ironically enough, they actually matched up Kyler Phillips and Ray Borg at one point. So both these guys were supposed to fight Ray Borg. Only one of them did. And Gabriel Silva went out there, won the first 8 minutes of the fight against Ray Borg. He was looking very impressive on the mat. He kept trying to take the back of a guy like Ray Borg. When you take Ray Borg's back, the guy's going to turn in to your guard. That's just how it is, man. And that's exactly what happened. I'm not convinced that Kyler Phillips can do the same thing. And look, Kyler Phillips, you got to watch out for the dynamic kicks that this kid brings to the table. You saw his last knockout on LFA, and you've seen the potential, this whole time. Now it's about him actually going out there and putting it all together in that UFC debut. But I think he's going to have a very tough matchup here with Gabriel Silva. Look, both these guys are so young into their careers that they could both be making astronomical leaps every single time we see them. So we could see the best version of each guy this Saturday night. But at this point, I think that Gabriel Silva is the more developed guy, and his jiu-jitsu is a huge factor. So I'm going to take Gabriel Silva as well. And real quick, if anyone actually got dog money on Gabriel Silva, I want to see some bet tickets because I have a feeling that might have been a book error because, do you think that Gabriel Silva was actually plus 140 at any point? Because I don't. So someone let me know if there's any truth to that whatsoever. Now, next up in the lightweight division, we got a matchup between Luis Violent Bob Ross Pena, he's 7-2, and Steve Garcia is 11-3. Currently, they got Luis Pena minus 275, and the comeback on Steve Garcia is plus 235. Well, Shaq, I actually think this line would be a little bit closer if Steve Garcia didn't take this fight on Monday of fight week. He took this fight on very short notice, and he's a very talented kid. He's been in there with a lot of UFC vets. It's just one of those situations where Steve Garcia is a habitual weight misser, Shaq. He missed at 135 pounds on Contender Series, missed at 145 pounds in his LFA main event. Now he's got a chance to come out here at 155 pounds against Luis Pena. What kind of chances you give him, being that he took this fight on Monday?
Yeah, man, this is a good fight because I agree. If Garcia had a full count, he's honestly, one could say he's more tested than Pena, even though Pena's got the UFC experience. But Garcia was fighting Joe Warren and, at a very young age in Bellator, Sean Bunch, Aalon, Cruz. He's been in there with some guys. Pena has as well. I'm not saying that he hasn't. But yeah, I do feel like if he had a long camp that, this fight would probably be lying closer. Pena, on the before his last fight, I kind of got on him a little bit, and I think the kid's good. Like, I definitely think that, he's only got, 9 fights? He's got such a long ways to go, man. More so my thing with Pena is more mental, to be honest, man. I feel like the kid can definitely be broken like we saw in the Trezano fight. And I feel like he can be discouraged in there, man. And when I'm hearing some of his interviews, man, I feel like, he's kind of thinking from a perspective of, for example, they ask him, like, how do you see this fight with Garcia going down, or what do you think? And he goes, if I was Steve, I would just be thinking, like, oh, if I lose, like, I'll get another chance, like, whatever. But, like, that, he might be right about that, but why not go with the other way around, saying Steve Garcia's looking to, fucking make a name off me, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I just feel like the kid thinks about things that he shouldn't be thinking about. Kind of like before his last fight, he was talking about fighting DeCasey, and I was like, well, what? Kid, you couldn't even beat Trezano. What are you talking about? I forget who the other name he said, but it was like crazy. But man, I think Pena's good. 6'3", long jab, got some good jiu-jitsu, suspect takedown defense. I'm sure it's gonna get better. He's at a new camp now. So I'm going to pick him for the win, and I think he's going to be in better shape than Garcia, but I will not be shocked that if Garcia pressed Pena and really started swinging some haze, and I think there's a small chance that Garcia actually, I feel like he's been doing himself a big disservice for a lot of years trying to cut this weight to 35s. He kind of looks like a 55er man in there. He's been fighting some small guys, and yeah, someone would say he's a weight bully, but you got to think, man, he was depleting himself to a point just to even be in those fights. And I think there's a chance that he might feel really good at 155, even though it's a tough spot to test it out at. I'll pick Pena for the win, but I think Garcia will be back, and I wouldn't be shocked that if this fight played out a lot closer than the line indicates, if Garcia made you sweat that minus 275. So I'll pick Pena for a close decision win.
So quick correction, I said that Steve Garcia was out here beating UFC vets. That's actually not true. He was out here beating Bellator, Contender Series, and LFA vets, though, and took some L's to them as well. So the guy is pretty experienced on his regional scene. And, man, he's a heavy hitter, man. I know you saw that finish against Desmond Torres on Contender Series. Now, granted, there was a massive size difference. This guy missed weight for bantamweight. It looked like a lightweight versus a bantamweight out there, but he still handled him accordingly. The Jose Marisco fight, but once again goes out there, misses weight for featherweight this time, but still knocks the kid out. He even was the guy that went out there and knocked out Andrew Whitney back when Andrew Whitney was trying to get a call to the UFC, and Steve Garcia put ends to those plans in the first round. So the kid's definitely dangerous. You cannot sleep on him at all. And if Luis Pena thinks this is some kind of joke, if Luis Pena thinks it's kind of cute, then he might wake up looking up at the lights, Shaq. But that being said, Luis Pena does have the UFC experience here. He's had a full camp, so that definitely has to favor him here. And again, I agree with you. I expect him to edge it out. But this actually might be a dog or pass situation. And if this fight was announced a month or two ago and Steve Garcia had more than just Monday to train for it, he might be a live dog here, but ultimately I will edge Pena. I think he's going to use those longer strikes and make something happen here. So I'm going to go with Luis Pena to win this fight. Now, next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Grant Dawson, he's 14-1, and Darrick Minner is 24-10. Currently, they got Grant Dawson minus 470. The comeback on Darrick Minner is plus 375. Well, Shaq, Grant Dawson had some very choice words for Darrick Minner. You think the kid's talking too much, or you think he's sending a message about what he's going to do this weekend?
Yeah, man, Grant Dawson, he's a very confident kid. I like him. I like his swagger. He's only got 2 fights in the UFC, so he needs to relax a little bit because he's out here making raps about Hakeem Dawodu and some other guys.
You know what happens when they start rapping?
I mean, look, the kid's charismatic. I like him. He kind of reminds me a lot of Krause. He's got some swagger to him. He kind of strikes like Krause as well. So, man, yeah, I mean, you got to go with Dawson here. I mean, Dawson's relentless with the takedowns. His wrestling technique is just really fucking good. His striking is getting better. Like I said, he kind of strikes like Krause. Krause is definitely teaching him a lot of things similar to what he likes to use. And, I feel like the kid can project down to a good striker down the line. I'd say his weakness is he can be wobbled. I've seen him getting knocked out, down the line at some point.
He's been knocked out before.
That's what his one loss is by, a knockout. So I think that, Darrick Minner is going to come at him like a lunatic, kind of like what we saw in the Herbert Burns fight on Contender Series. I mean, I'll be honest, Darrick Minner gives no fucks about anything. So Darrick Minner is a grudge match. I feel like it's going to be real emotional. Both these guys are probably going to have to be separated at weigh-ins. Gotta go with Dawson. I think if he can clear those first couple minutes, man, he'll start to pick Darrick Minner up and take him for a ride. So, Darrick Minner does have a puncher's chance in the early going of the fight, but we know what happens when Darrick Minner gets tired. He'll pull a stunt. So,
look, Grant Dawson said it best. Darrick Minner is dangerous for 2 minutes, and Grant Dawson's dangerous for 15 straight minutes. And I mean, when you look at Darrick Minner's last few fights, this is true, man. His last 3 wins, and he actually beat Clay Collard, a former UFC fighter. He beat him in 31 seconds via rear naked choke. He beat Ultimate Fighter veteran Terrence McKinney via triangle choke in 57 seconds. And he also beat some other guy in 1:33. So basically, Grant Dawson's right. He's beating these guys right away. And the one time that Grant Dawson lost was right away. So, you know what I'm saying? Grant Dawson's got to be careful for those first 2 minutes. But once he gets past those first 2 minutes, I think he's going to give Darrick Minner some sky miles. You know what I'm saying? On that passport, man, even though he's not flying overseas. But you know what I'm saying? He's going to take him for a ride. He's going to pick him up. He's going to slam him. He's probably going to set a takedown record in this fight. Or he might get a first-round submission. But bottom line, as long as Grant Dawson isn't too cocky here and he doesn't think this is one big joke, because the way he's acting right now.
He's very cocky, by the way.
He said that this kid not only doesn't belong in there with him, but doesn't belong in the UFC. And he even went as far as saying, look, Darrick Minner falls short every single time he's given an opportunity, and he will fall short again Saturday night. So those are some big words to live up to, but I do think the skills of Grant Dawson trump Darrick Minner, so I'm going to take him for that reason. Now, next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Megan Anderson, she's 9-4, and Norma Dumont is 4-0. Currently, they got Megan Anderson -230, and the comeback on Norma Dumont is +190. Well, Shaq, Megan Anderson finally got her first real UFC win. I know she beat Kazangano officially, but the fans didn't respect that win. Now, there's no way to deny her last win over Zarah Fairn.
It's not my fault you couldn't continue.
So, I mean, look, she's taking on Norma Dumont, who's undefeated, and Norma Dumont, she's a bantamweight most of the time. She hasn't fought since 2018. But, I mean, she's undefeated. She's won fights via rear naked choke, Shaq, which you know Megan's had an issue on the mat before. You think those issues will come to light here, or is Megan going to roll?
Man, Norma Dumont, look, the Brazilian woman fighting scene is definitely low level. I mean, so this is gonna, even though Megan, we like to joke around about how, you know, she kind of can psych herself out at times. This is gonna be a step up for Norma Dumont, 100%, man. Kind of similar to the last one going in. At least some people thought Zarah Fairn was somewhat live, you know, but it's a completely different level in the UFC than it is that regional scene. And I feel like Megan Anderson, look, guys, she only lost to fucking Holly Holm and fucking Felicia Spencer, who went 3 rounds with Cyborg, like, no problem, man. So, like, I honestly think that those girls are just better than her, man. So I think Megan Anderson, I know Norma Dumont's got a lot of talent, some good grappling, and I think she's going to have a very bright future. But I just think that this UFC jump that she's about to make is a completely different ball game, and I feel like the comfortability in the octagon is definitely going to be on Megan's side. And I think that Megan, you know, I feel like this, you know, she's fighting, you know, some lesser competition, and where I see her winning this fight is on the feet. I know that Norma Dumont's got some good jiu-jitsu, but, you know, I feel like if Megan can clear that, man, I feel like she can get off on some knees against this girl, some elbows, and possibly even get a knockout or a TKO, and she gets a lot of TKO. So I'm going to go with Megan Anderson by finish. I'm going to actually say first-round finish. I think Norma Dumont's got a bright future, but I don't think she's ready for not even, you know, the UFC, but it's more so just, man, when these, like, you know, I just think it's a big step up on fight night and I just think that Megan's going to have a lot of experience, and I think it's going to carry her away. And I just think that her losses are, I know she pulled somewhat, she didn't look too good, but I just also think that Felicia Spencer has proved, like Felicia Spencer with 3 with Cyborg. I think that, you know, I go with Megan Anderson here.
So it's interesting because Norma Dumont's coming into the UFC with this undefeated record, but man, she's only fought one somewhat legit opponent. And I say legit, you know, and we're talking about a journeywoman with a 14-10 record, right? So that's the only person she's fought that's had more than 5 pro fights. And with Megan Anderson, she's definitely had some suspect moments, especially on the mat. I know you remember the Cindy Dandois fight, the Holly Holm fight, even the Felicia Spencer fight, but those opponents are on a completely different level than Norma Dumont. And I'm not going to write off Norma Dumont's, you know, maybe the potential that in these 2 years she's transformed into a different fighter, and she can come out here and maybe exploit some of the weaknesses that Megan Anderson's shown in the past, but that would be a complete guess, and I have zero proof of that whatsoever. What I do have proof of is that Megan Anderson finally got her first UFC win, and that's got to elevate her confidence much more, and her confidence is something that she struggled with in the past. So I think that a big first-round finish in the kind of stage she did, it was one of the most attended UFC events in history. You remember Whitaker versus Adesanya in that sold-out stadium. So now she's got to be feeling a little bit better about herself, and she can come out here, maintain that range, use those long strikes, and maybe knock her out with a knee, maybe capitalize on something on the mat. I think she should come out here and get the finish. It's just I personally don't trust Megan Anderson at that big a chalk in any fight, but, you know, we don't know enough about Norma Dumont. It maybe should be a situation where it's line wider, you know what I mean? Like, maybe Norma Dumont comes out here and takes a knee in the first round. We really do not know enough about her to really say, but I'm going to go with Megan Anderson here. Next up in the light heavyweight division, we got a matchup between Magomed Ankalaev, he's 12-1, and Iwan Cutelaba is 15-4. Currently, they got Magomed Ankalaev minus 220. The comeback on Iwan Cutelaba is plus 180. Well, Shaq, people are very, very high on Magomed Ankalaev. Very impressive knockout against Dalcha Lunjambula his last time out. But this kid, Iwan Cutelaba, he's been in the UFC 4 years now. Is he finally putting it together, or do you simply think Magomed Ankalaev's on a different level?
Yeah, it's a good matchup. Ankalaev definitely looked good his last fight. I mean, at first I didn't want to give him too much credit for that, but, man, he wiped him out from completely, man. He embarrassed him. I'm not even sure if Dalcha is going to be the same after that. You know what I'm saying? It was that bad of a beatdown. So Ankalaev, he had that stun against Paul Craig, but I think we all know that if they fight, 9 times.
It just happens that we had our money on him that time.
Paul Craig, he's a fluke. He's a fluke guy, man. He pulls off a fluke from time to time.
One to a draw with Shogun.
You know what I'm saying? So I think since then, man, he's redeemed himself with the win over Klitzen, dominated Klitzen and Brady, who did get wobbled on early in that fight, which is going to be the key here, is Cutelaba first round. First round Cutelaba is fucking hells on wheels, you know what I'm saying? He's got power in his hands. He can knock you out, and just look at the facts. Most of his wins are in the first round. Khalil Roundtree, first round knockout. The Brazilian guy that Frankenstein Silva, first round knockout. Antigua, first round knockout. He's got a decision win. But 3 of his 4 wins are by knockout. And what happens when he gets extended? I mean, Cannonier got him when he went extended. Glover Teixeira, when he got out the first round, got him. I mean, look, Cutelaba is your typical first round power puncher looking to knock your head off. And if you can survive, if you don't get knocked out, then I think that Ankalaev will be able to definitely take the next 2 rounds, and Cutelaba will be fatigued. I mean, it's just a reoccurring theme in Cutelaba's fights. It just is. So I think that obviously it's a little wide, and Cutelaba's this young guy, very experienced, only 25-6, if I'm not mistaken. Definitely could be getting better, man, but he just has yet to prove to me that he can maintain his cardio or maintain his composure in a second round of a fight. And I think Ankalaev's smart enough to know that, look, let me just play this very safe in the first round, not get into too many exchanges with this guy, and he'll fatigue, man. I think that Khalil Roundtree, to be honest with you, was broke. I mean, he broke him at the weigh-ins in that fight, man. I mean, he got in his face and did that scream. I'm interested to see if he can do some tactics like that with Ankalaev. Then I might switch my pick if he can make this more of a mental warfare thing. But I think Ankalaev, man, at 6'4", I think he is 6'4", right? Man, his kicks at distance, really, I kind of see him running away with these late rounds against Cutelaba. I mean, look, when he hurt Glover Teixeira, that towards the end of that first round, man, he was already huffing and puffing, fatigued, man. I get it, he almost knocked him out, but it's just I just don't like Cutelaba in those late rounds, so I favor Ankalaev, and I think he's gonna win a 29-27 decision here. So I'm gonna go with Ankalaev.
Well, when you talk about this mental warfare, the last guy to try mental warfare on Ankalaev was actually Paul Craig. He had that face paint on, got right in the face of Magomed Ankalaev. They thought it was some kind of joke. They were laughing, and then it was Magomed Ankalaev that was tapping with 1 second left in that fight, costing us all a lot of money in that spot. But what's interesting is that Iwan Cutelaba is going to get right in his face, too. I know that has nothing to do with the fight. It comes down to what happens in this first round, because Iwan Cutelaba is going to come out hard. For such a young kid who's been in the UFC 4 years already, I hope that he can finally adjust, make some adjustments with that pacing issue that he has, because the kid is very dangerous. And correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Dalcha rock Ankalaev in that first round? Didn't he wobble him slightly? So
he'll get stumbled here.
I think that when that does happen in this first round, that there isn't going to be a chance to come back. I think Iwan Cutelaba is going to capitalize on a hurt Ankalaev and finish him in that first round. Now, it's just about if this fight gets extended, that's where shit gets interesting. Because, look, if you're laying chalk on Ankalaev, I completely understand. You're hoping he gets past the first round. Now, this might be a live betting opportunity, because right now you got this minus money on Ankalaev. If Iwan Cutelaba comes out here, gets the dominant first round, but starts to fade a little bit, you might get plus money at the live betting window on Ankalaev to take over the second and third round. We'll see how it actually plays out, though. It might go down completely different than that, but Yeah, look, Ankalaev is the better fighter, especially down the stretch, but I have a feeling this isn't going to go down the stretch, so I'm going to go with Iwan Cutelaba via first-round knockout. Co-main event of the evening in the featherweight division, we got Felicia Spencer, she's 7-1, and we got Zarah Fairn, she's 6-3. Currently, they got Felicia Spencer minus 810. The comeback on Zarah Fairn is plus 555. Shaq, is it going to be one back take and the fight will be over shortly after, or is this going to be that typical, minus 1,000 spot where Felicia tries to test her stand-up this time and it's closer than we expect?
Yeah. Her stand-up definitely, I wouldn't say is good. It's definitely a work in progress, but man, her grappling and her tie-up game definitely is. And yeah, man, Fairn has no ground game at all, man. So I think that it could be one time on the mat and this could be over. Like I said, man, she went 3. I think honestly she could have probably went 5 rounds with Cyborg the way she was eating the shots, no problem, man. I watched the fight the other day. I was like, damn, this chick got a chin on her. You know what I'm saying? So. I think that, Felicia Spencer should roll here. Obviously, it's lined super wide. But Zarah Fairn, man, she had a big layoff before the Anderson fight and some of her fights on the local scene, against John Kavanaugh's sister or his cousin. What's her name?
Sinead?
Yeah.
I remember that fight.
Yeah, John Kavanaugh's sister. It's not his sister, guys. I'm just joking. But I think that, man, she's just a lower level fighter, man. So I think Felicia, the Phenom Spencer, should roll here, man.
Yeah, look, it's just about, does Felicia want to test her stand-up here? Does she want to be cute and put on a show for the fans? Or does she know where her strengths lie, goes out here, takes the back one time, takes her down one time, and finishes the fight? So it's really up to how Felicia wants to approach this, because I know a lot of people are considering this under 1.5. Well, it's minus money, so we just got to consider what Felicia Spencer is trying to do here. But I think ultimately she does get that first-round sub. It's just, go out there and actually pursue it, Felicia. Don't try to test your stand-up here. Not that she won't win if she does. I'm just saying she has a lot better chance of finishing the fight early if she goes to her strengths. Main event of the evening for the vacant flyweight title. We got Joseph Benavidez. He's 28-5. And Deiveson Figueiredo is 17-1. Currently, they got Joseph Benavidez minus 140. The comeback on Deiveson Figueiredo is plus 120. Well, Shaq, since Henry Cejudo vacated that flyweight belt, I couldn't think of 2 more deserving contenders to fight for the belt than Deiveson God of War Figueiredo and Joseph Jiu-Jitsu Benavidez. Look, Benavidez has had a couple title opportunities in the past, but guess what, Shaq? It's been 7 years since the last time this man challenged for a belt. And when Deiveson Figueiredo has been very impressive, already got to experience that first UFC L, and he's bounced back in big fashion since, earned himself a title shot. Who walks out the UFC flyweight champion on Saturday night, Shaq?
It's a great fight. I feel like both these guys had L's to kind of make them pick things back up. I mean, Benavidez lost to Serghei, man. A lot of people are like, whoa, I mean, Benavidez looked like shit that night. But I just think he was a little rusty, probably. Big layoff, ACL surgery. I think it was multiple knee things he had going on there. And he kind of just seemed like he was, Benavidez likes to not give you different reads. He likes to switch constantly. But, man, I love this matchup just due to the fact that Benavidez, man, surprisingly, when I watch this guy's fights, this dude Benavidez ain't jabbing or no, pitter-patter, man. This dude Benavidez is in here throwing big hooks to the body, big overhands, big body kicks. Like, he's a power striker, man. And then you got Figueiredo, who I think on the given night can knock anyone out at flyweight. I think he's arguably the most powerful guy at flyweight. And like you said, with his first loss against Formiga, he needed that, man, because, from what I understood, Waleed Ismail said that he cut like 39 pounds to make 125. I think he was coming off the John Moraga fight. And you know what happens when these kids get that first signature win, man. It goes to their heads, and they and then they start having to cut 39 pounds for their next fight. So, I think he needed that. And he bounced back with Pantoja, who a lot of people thought was going to do the same thing like Formiga did, get on top of him and get the takedowns. And, he was able to shut that down. And then it just seems like his preparation for the last 2 fights was definitely a lot better. And the Elliott fight, which was, somewhat of a formality. So then you got Benavidez. I think he bounced back with Perez. had that good fight with Ortiz. I got a lot of respect for Ortiz. Ortiz is gonna test you, man. He's gonna
stay chopping.
He's gonna test you. You know what I'm saying? And it was a good fight. The last 2 rounds were actually closer than what I remembered. But man, Benavidez, man, he's fucking good everywhere. I think this is a very good fight, man. I feel like both guys leave openings to get knocked out potentially. That's why I'm so intrigued by this fight. And I feel like Deiveson Figueiredo, since that Formiga fight, has addressed his takedown defense like in a way that's been like Pantoja. I mean, you see what Pantoja does. Pantoja loves to submit guys in the first round or knock them out. And man, Deiveson was shrugging off those takedowns in his attempts to take his back, like with ease, man. And then, the Tim Elliott fight as well. So I think that I would actually give a slight edge in power to actually Benavidez, surprisingly, man, just because Benavidez is actually dropping. Like, he dropped Perez, he knocked him out. He dropped Dustin Ortiz, he dropped Formiga. I mean, like I said, I was surprised. This guy's a power striker, man. He's out here dropping these guys and hurting them. So I actually give him the edge, slight edge in power. It's just that I also think that Benavidez leaves more openings to get caught than Figueiredo. Figueiredo actually surprisingly has a karate background that a lot of people don't know about. He actually came up doing karate, and that's why he has that stance he likes to get into with his hands down. But I feel like he's a little bit more. At least a little bit more. I feel like Benavidez at times has some very close calls where, man, he could have almost got caught there against a better guy. In comparison to Figueiredo, I don't see Benavidez having the top control to hold Figueiredo down. It's a 50-50 fight to me, man. I think Benavidez has fallen short in these moments. Time in and time out again. I don't want to say I hope he finally comes through after 7 years, because that would be devastating if he didn't get this win, man. But, man, I don't know. I'm going to go with Deiveson God of War Figueiredo. I feel like, man, his vibe this week has been very good. Not saying that Joe B's hasn't been good, but, man, Deiveson Figueiredo is oozing of positivity and energy this week. I think that at some point Benavidez makes a mistake inside the pocket. I think he's very open to straight rights. And I think that Deiveson Figueiredo eventually catches Benavidez for a TKO win. I think from a betting perspective, there is some value on Figueiredo, because I think that Joseph Benavidez, he's also been fighting these guys that he already beat before. He already knocked out Formiga. We already know he could knock out Formiga, and he already beat Dustin Ortiz as well. So the Perez one was legit, but I'm going to go with the dog here. I'm going to go with Figueiredo. It's a very good fight, but I like what I've been seeing from him this week.
I feel like this is a fight where you can make a case for both gentlemen. Both guys are definitely title contender worthy.
But I also think it's one of those fights where if Benavidez was the dog, that maybe you should take that side too. Like, you could be open to taking both guys,
Exactly. This is a spot where you can make an argument for both guys winning this fight. So at the betting window, it might be a dog or pass situation. But, man, that being said, Benavidez has had all these opportunities. He's fallen short, but he was also going up against, the quote-unquote greatest bantamweight of all time, Dominic Cruz, and the former greatest flyweight of all time, Demetrius Johnson, because you and I know my boy Triple C is the greatest flyweight of all time. I hope that pisses a lot of people off.
I mean, he is.
No, but
he's the best bantamweight of all
time. So real quick, on a separate note, because I know everyone's crying. As my friends in the UK say, all these people got their knickers in a twist.
Knickers.
Isn't that how they say it? Over this Cejudo versus Aldo situation. But let me just say this about that fight. Cejudo beat the greatest flyweight of all time, Demetrius Johnson, knocked out one of the greatest bantamweights of all time, TJ Dillashaw, and now you guys are going to prevent him from having the opportunity of beating one of the greatest featherweights of all time, Jose Aldo?
We just want to go on the Legends tour. That's it, man. We don't want to fight Peter.
Why would he want to fight Peter? No one knows who Peter is, and Peter might beat him. You know what I mean?
We're good.
So why would we want to fight Sandhagen? That kid's so fucking good, and no one's ever heard of him. So anyone that knows anything about this game knows why he took this Aldo fight.
Is gonna sell way more pay-per-views. And look, from the business side of things, what happens if let's say Aldo goes out there and wins, let's say he catches Henry. Now Aldo's got a belt in a new division, 35s. I mean, bro, it's the perfect fight to make, man.
Between you and me, Aldo.
I mean, that's probably not gonna happen, but I'm just saying, that's the, what if Aldo wins? He's a champ in 2 weight classes now. You know what I'm saying?
That pace Cejudo push is gonna be something for my boy Jose.
I know he's gonna be, doing the Nova 3 minutes in, but
But back to this main event. Look, like I said, I think you can make a case for either guy, 100%. Joseph Benavidez. He fell short in the past, but it's been 7 years since that last time, and he's also not fighting the greatest bantamweight or flyweight of all time. But, man, Deiveson Figueiredo brings a lot to the table. He cannot be slept on. He's a live underdog here. Like Shaq mentioned, that karate background. This guy comes out there with a very interesting stance. You saw that fight against Pantoja and that effortless head movement. It's like he had zero regard for what Pantoja was doing. That fight was really interesting because when Pantoja goes zombie mode on you and he starts to bite down on that mouthpiece, he starts to get aggressive, he starts to put it all on the line, it gets scary for a lot of guys. And for Deiveson Figueiredo, he gave zero fucks about what Pantoja was throwing his way. It was almost like this guy hit soft. It was crazy. I was like, dude, but that's Pantoja. Like, no one walks through Pantoja's shots like that. And then when it was time for Deiveson to land offense of his own, he floored the guy. He got up on such a lead that he could run away for that third round. And and whenever he wanted to land an occasional uppercut, an occasional hook, he was able to do that as well. You shoot it on this guy with your head on the outside, he will snatch that guillotine. Just ask Tim Elliott. But you know who also guillotined Tim Elliott in the first round as well, right? Joseph Benavidez. So both these guys are very interesting cats in the flyweight division. I got a lot of respect for both of them. Now it's about making this pick. So I want to say a couple things because everyone's under the impression that if this fight hits the championship rounds, that no matter what, Joseph Benavidez is going to take over. And I see the case for that because Deiveson was kind of fading late in that Pantoja fight. But I'm not writing off the possibility that this guy gets a second win in the championship rounds because when you got that frame, sometimes you got to take a round or two off, Shaq. You know what I mean? And then come back in the later rounds. So I'm not counting out Deiveson's ability to do that. But I have seen that Benavidez can go the full 5-round distance and maintain that pace the entire time. So this is a very tough call for me to pick, or this is a very tough fight for me to pick. It could go either way, but I think that, and it's a dog or pass situation at the betting window, by the way, but I think that if Joseph Benavidez doesn't get floored within these first 2 rounds, then I think he will have success with the calf kicks, with the body kicks, eventually mixing it up upstairs, and then getting some takedowns of his own. He's got some very nicely timed double legs, and I think at first they're going to be stuffed, but as the fight progresses, he might be able to get some, and I'm going to take Joseph to slightly edge out a decision, finally accomplish that lifelong goal of being a UFC world champion. So I'm going to go with Benavidez here, but we ain't talking max bet season or nothing like that. I think it's a very close fight that could go either way. Well, Shaq, we got a couple minutes left. Let's get to some of these fan questions and let's get out of here. So, real quick, Tony Weddle says, do either of you guys see Magomed Ankalaev becoming a champion anytime soon? Let me answer this. No guy that lost to Paul Craig is beating John Jones in a fight. Alonzo says, is Benavidez chinny? He's only been knocked out once. He's been dropped by Sergio, though.
He's been dropped.
Look, I'll just say this. If Deiveson lands the right punch on anyone, they're going to go down. And he also says, should Mikal go to middleweight?
Yes.
Yeah, and he better get in a jiu-jitsu gym as well. Slick Savage says, where do you guys see yourselves and Greg Hardy in 2 years? Listen, just improving every single day. I see ourselves at the top in 2 years, and Greg Hardy, man, wish him the best. Hope that he keeps improving every single time out. Hisham Hamid says, our initial thoughts on Weidman versus the Joker.
Jack the Joker by hashtag the Joker dominates.
You guys know our thoughts on that. Rob Waddell says, what do you think the reason is Showtime Pettis striking has not developed well over many years?
Because he's never been that good of a boxer, and he can, when you pressure him and start beating him up, I mean, look, he's just fighting the top guys, man. He's fighting Dustin and Tony, and the last fight was a setup fight too with Diego Ferreira. That guy, in my opinion, is top 10. And he's just not. He needs to fight Ally Akinta or like fucking
Ally Akinta, and then his striking will look good again. But yeah, no, I think it's one of those situations where the guy's already accomplished everything there is to accomplish. It's for him, just go out there, get that 6-figure paycheck. We don't gotta bust our ass like we used to. Not that he's not working hard, I'm sure he is, but I'm just saying that same hunger hasn't been there for a long time, because what else is there to accomplish? He ain't touching gold ever again. He ain't getting on the Wheaties box again. He already accomplished those things, and he's got businesses outside of fighting. Much respect to the guy. Now, some of our Twitter questions. So Matthew Drucker wants to know, if Figueiredo were to move up to bantamweight, how do you think he would do against the top 15?
Who's number 15? Ione? Yeah. Not good, probably. I mean, I think he could beat some guys for sure. Mid. I mean, Casey Kinney went from flyweights to top 15, but top 15. I think he's. But maybe he feels a lot better.
What about John Dodson versus Deiveson Figueiredo?
Tough fight,
Song Yadong, Pedro Munoz.
I think Munoz out of the three is probably the best one, just because he gets hit the most. But I would say he's a middle of the pack 35er.
All right, GMO says, where is Jiu-Jitsu training nowadays?
Performance Institute, Vegas, Extreme Couture.
He says, and when is Jared Nitrain good in making a step up to the show? I'm going to get this win on Saturday, and then there's going to be a opportunity right after that. So stay tuned. I actually got to tell you something about that, Shaq, off air. I'm going to go ahead and tell you now. I'll just edit it out the show. He's fighting Kings MMA says, who is going to pull a bigger stunt this weekend, Tybura or Griffin? That's a great question.
That's a fucking great question, bro, because Griffin, man, some of the shit that guy does on in the grappling side of things is just like, And then Tybura, I don't want to say he's a stunt. I just think Tybura is a broken man. So I'll say Griffin, actually.
I'm gonna go Tybura, man. The guy with the 81% takedown defense is gonna get taken down by the polar bear this weekend and pull another stunt. Moy's Noise says, does Shaq wear a cape? He's basically calling you a hero.
I mean, I've been known to at times, yeah.
Our Aussie fans want us to release the show earlier. We're working on it. I appreciate y'all. Matthew Drucker says, I don't know if I'm too late, but when do you expect Jamar the Rockstar Whitehead to make his pro debut?
I would say a year.
Listen, this kid's one of the best talents I've ever seen. Undefeated amateur, only 20 years old. He's something special. We're taking the right fights and taking the right steps with him. So I'm saying end of this year, early to mid next year. Look out for Jamar the Rockstar Whitehead. Tommy says, what is the worst stunt in UFC history? According to him, it's Caleb Starnes running around the octagon against Nate Corey.
My biggest stunt in UFC history, Ankalaev and Craig's up there. Ankalaev, I was shocked when that happened.
Ankalaev versus Paul Craig.
I was like,
because when the 10-second clapper went off, we're like, oh, it's over.
Yeah, I was like, all right.
And then it was like, wait, no, it's not over. Oh shit, it is over. You lost. My boy Rampage 420 says, what are your thoughts of Ankalaev's upside in the 205-pound division? He sees him being the one to dethrone John Jones. Like I said, my man, kid's very talented, but no guy that lost to Paul Craig is beating John Jones in a fight.
How do I say? Yeah, I mean, I definitely see him probably being in those rankings here soon. If he can get this win, most likely he will be. Boy, I don't know if he's ready to swim with them no times and them Anthony Lionheart Smiths of the world. But maybe after this one he can get a. What about Ankalaev and Corey? I know Corey's looking to get back in there. I know Corey's looking to get back on track.
I like that.
What about Corey versus Ratchet?
Ty says, what trade can the UFC do to bring Mighty Mouse back? Sorry, bro, but
good, bro.
Mighty Mouse ain't coming back.
Yeah, Mighty Mouse is making bread over there, bro. There's no point to come back for him financially. I mean, he's making more money. That Asian market is his coach is fucking running the promotion.
Exactly. I was about to say his coach. He fucking has a stake over there and won. Like, why would this dude ever want to come back? He's happy over there.
Them days are over.
My boy Kobe Cap says he thinks Jordan Griffin is going to smoke Brown, and because he thought he fought very, very spirited against Ige. And
kid fights a ton of spirit.
So he says, how about a shout out for Kobe, Gianna, and Vanessa? Always, bro.
Yeah, man. Kobe's a GOAT of this game, bro. And Gianna, rest in peace, a beautiful young lady. And then Vanessa Bryan, I mean, she's a warrior, man. She's hanging in there every day. So props to them. Kobe's will always be the GOAT. And, props to my boy.
Yeah, man. And it's just, if you ever need motivation, go watch one of those Kobe videos. So much wisdom from that guy. True legend. R.I.P. to the GOAT.
And
much love and respect.
Of the UFC as well.
And to everyone that was involved in that tragedy, too. R.I.P. Dylan says, do you think Cutelaba will continue to implement his wrestling into his fights after how well he performed against Khalil Roundtree?
I think the Roundtree fight, man, I mean, he should, but I also think his wrestling isn't good enough to take certain guys down. I don't want to say his wrestling's overrated, but I also think Roundtree has never had, the best takedown defense. And I truly think Roundtree was psyched out in a way before that. I think Cutelaba, that's why I want to see what happens at weigh-ins today. I want to see what games Cutelaba's playing with him. You know what I'm saying? Because Cutelaba's going to do some shit. I know he's got some shit planned up his sleeve for
See that fucking slick-ass suit he was wearing at the media day?
Yeah, I know he's got something planned up his sleeve for weigh-ins today, so I want to see it.
Color of Money says, if Joby loses another title fight, does he become the 90s Buffalo Bills of MMA?
Man, I guess, yeah. Just he'd be the Kenny Florian or the Frankie at this point. I mean, at least Frankie won a title, but a Faber, I guess,
Yeah, well, the guy has got Megan O'Leary, so he's a winner no matter what. He's a champ in my eyes. But we want to thank all you guys so much for all your questions. Now we got to talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So, Shaq, what is the fight to watch for UFC on ESPN Plus 27?
Fight to watch is going to be the main event, I guess, man. I think that flyweight, man, they've been secretly becoming my favorite division, man, with all these, even though the division doesn't have that many guys in it, man, they just fight with the pace and the speed, man. So, and then I just feel like both guys leave openings that both can capitalize on. And I truly think there's a chance that someone gets knocked stiff. So that's going to be my fight to watch.
Yeah, and speaking of a fight where I think someone gets knocked stiff, I got to go with Iwan Cutelaba versus Magomed Ankalaev. I truly believe that no matter how this fight goes, it's going to be very exciting with Iwan Cutelaba coming out hard in that first round. If he can't get out Ankalaev early, Ankalaev's going to take over, start landing some very sniper-like attacks. So no matter what happens, Cutelaba versus Ankalaev is my fight to watch. Well, Shaq, who is your fighter to watch for UFC Norfolk?
Aalon Cruz. I feel like Aalon Cruz, he's got a fight against this kid, Spike Carlyle, this weekend, who he also himself is he's doing a good job of talking. He's saying a lot of big words out there. He's kind of reminded me of Fernandez, but he's saying manifest a lot. But I think Aalon Cruz, I mean, he's coming off that fucking vicious flying knee KO on Contender Series. I'm sure the fans want to see how he comes back. Is it too much to live up to, or is it, or are we going to see more of that, man? So Aalon Cruz is my fighter to watch.
Yeah, Aalon Cruz is definitely one of the fighters to watch. For me, my fighter to watch is Brendan Allen. Like I mentioned in my breakdown already, this kid's had the same style his entire career, but he wasn't good enough to fully execute it at the UFC level until now. Now that the kid's a black belt, he's feeling more confident in these big positions that he gets. And against a fellow black belt and Tom Breese, that's going to make this fight even more intriguing. And then you factor in the other side of things, which is who's more confident right now, who's feeling their best. That's what makes this fight so intriguing, and that's where I think that I really need to tune in to see how a kid like Brendan Allen performs. Is he at a disadvantage here in the boxing, but is he able to overcome that with willpower and a relentless pressure going forward, plus his awesome body lock and his black belt in jiu-jitsu? So for that reason, Brendan Allen is my fighter to watch, Shaq. Well, Shaq, we did it. It's going down this Saturday in Virginia, UFC Norfolk, Joseph Benavidez versus Deiveson Figueiredo. They can follow you at MMA Genius 05 on Twitter. They can follow you at ShaqBFP on Instagram. They can follow me at Best Fight Picks. And our bets are available at bestfightpicks.com. Use that promo code 2020 for 20% off our VIPs. If you want to hit us up individually, use the promo code Shaq for 10% off Shaq's bets. Use the promo code Dan for 10% off my bets. That's at bestfightpicks.com, at maxbetseason.com. Subscribe to Half the Battle on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, Stitcher, Spotify, and all the places where we are available. We truly appreciate all your support. We love all you guys. Thank you guys very much. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.